This is JM Hobby Supply's Instant Track Tack It. This is an adhesive to be used when ballasting model railroad track that allows you to ballast it much faster as opposed to the old way of using white glue, soap, and alcohol to get the glue to spread, making a lot of mess on the rails, having to clean off the rails. This is a very easy way to do this, and it's simply activated by water and goes very quick. If I open up the jar here, you'll see this is a powdered substance that we've invented that we actually mix with the ballast of your choice. And so what we're going to do is show you a little bit of a sample of how we do this, and hopefully you can then replicate this on your layout. First, let me show you this sample. This is using Woodland Scenic's fine gray ballast, and you can see that we've already ballasted this piece. It's nice and solid, doesn't come off this board that we've mounted it on, and we haven't nailed the track down or anything like that. This has all been ballasted and hardened using the Instant Track Tack It ballasting adhesive product. We're going to come back to this in a little while because I'm going to show you how you can add some to an already completed project. The ballast we're going to be using today is the Woodland Scenic's fine gray ballast. You can use any type of ballast you wish, or maybe even make your own, which a lot of people do. We're going to be ballasting a piece of HO scale model railroad track mounted on an underlayment of cork. And we usually like to use a fine or medium grade ballast in order to do this project. First thing we need to do, though, is we're going to mix the ballast and the adhesive product together, and this is always a 2-to-1 mix. So we're going to take 6 spoonfuls of ballast, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And as I said, it's a 2-to-1 mix, so now we're going to take 3 spoonfuls of the ballast adhesive. 1, 2, and 3. Again, 2-to-1. 2 parts ballast, 1 part adhesive. Now we're going to mix these together. Sometimes we get questions from people about, well, it changes the color of the ballast. It may look like that when you are mixing this together, but the ballast adhesive is a neutral color, and once you do the ballasting of your track and spray it down with water and it dries, you'll be right back to the original color of the ballast. So let me move this out of the way, bring our new piece in. And when you do the ballasting, you simply ballast it the same way that you would on any regular ballasting situation. We usually like to put a good amount of it in the center of the rails. And we're going to go back and we're going to put some more on because we want to make sure that we can dribble it down the side of the ditches, just like a real railroad does. And you get that nice angle like you'd see if you were riding the rails on a real railroad. Now we take a standard paintbrush. This one's about the width of the rails. The first thing we do, and for those of you who have ballasted before, we just kind of go down the center. You can see how it begins to push the ballast off to the side, just like a regular ballaster would do on a real railroad. We're going to do this a couple of times to get the ballast roughly in the place where we want it. You can see the rails starting to reappear. And again, it's kind of a neat process because this is very similar to how it would look on an actual railroad when they're laying down ballast. Once we kind of get the tracks where we can see them, now we start doing the fine work, making sure we don't have excess ballast on the rails or in between. And when we get to the point where we start dampening the product to get the ballast adhesive to work, we'll talk about making sure that it doesn't interfere with the rails whatsoever. So we'll just kind of get this roughly in place. You can obviously be more or less fussy depending on how you want your rails to look. So we're just trying to give you the general idea as to how this works. Next step to this is to take a sprayer, like you see here, and just fill it with water. You don't have to add anything else to it at all, just water. Put it on a very fine mist. This is simply a 96-cent spray bottle that I got at Home Depot. You can find them everywhere. No need to put extra expense into this. You might even have some laying at home. When you start spraying, you want to make sure that you have a very fine mist. And you want to very finely mist it from above, about a foot high. And the reason you want to do that is because you don't want to blow your ballast all over the place. You want to just get the adhesive started so it'll hold. If you get too close and you use too hard of a spray, you'll blow your ballast all over the place. That's definitely what you don't want. Now, before we go further, what we like to do is just kind of wipe off the tops of the ties. You can do this with a cloth if you wish. I'm just using my finger right now. And then I usually take an X-Acto knife and I just run it right along the inside flange of each rail to make sure that I don't have any grains stuck inside there. And what we found is that, as you can see on the knife, there's few, if any, grains on here at all. The action of the water has caused everything to flow in right where we want it. Now we can get closer because we're not going to blow that ballast away, and we're simply going to soak it so it pools on top. The water should pool right on top of the ballast and the adhesive product so it penetrates all the way through. The last thing you want is not put enough water on it and the top shell gets hard and the bottom stays dry. So don't be afraid to flood this so you can see the water sitting on top. It will absorb it and it will get nice and hard. Any excess water will evaporate, and if you have any excess ballast or adhesive sitting alongside that you don't want, you can obviously very easily wipe that away as desired. So now all that's going to happen is you let this sit. It starts tacking up instantly. After about 10 minutes, you'll see that we could pick it up and it would be already somewhat tacky and solid, but we usually just let it dry overnight. And then the next day we come back, we're running trains. So this is how we end this process. I've brought the original sample that we completed prior to this taping in because I wanted to show you that even after you're done, let's say you've missed a spot or you have a crack or you want to add some, it's really easy. You can dump some in wherever you want. We've got a crack right over here. You can smooth it out a little or you can brush it. Let's put a little bit on the other side. Looks like there's a couple of low spots over here where we missed a little bit. And that happens sometimes where you want to add some to it. You can smooth it out, get it where you want it. And even though we've already completed the project earlier, now the same principle takes place. Just moisten it a little bit to get it to hold in place with light spray so we don't blow the ballast away. You can see how quickly that blends in. And then again, just take that new ballast that you've put on there, soak it real good. You can always add to it if you feel the need to, and just do the exact same process on the ballast that you laid originally. So it gives you a chance to make any repairs or additions without affecting anything you've already done.